8 of the Allyship journey. Today we will talk about implicit biases in the justice and police system. First, let's understand unconscious bias. Basically, our brain has the capacity to make rapid decisions. This is extremely useful, especially to recognize a potential threat. This is what has often saved our lives as human beings. This capacity to rapidly analyze a situation and decide what to do. But in a non-threatening situation, this part of our brain is active too. So I make automatic associations, linked to what I've heard in my family, in my society, in my history classes, in the books, in the movies, in the newspapers. I judge instinctively. I meet a stranger, I judge. I make assumptions, I imagine, according to what the person looks like, the way she speaks, dresses, moves with her body. Fast, good, bad, I like, I don't like. And we all do it, let's be very honest. We don't say it because we know it's not politically correct, but we know we are supposed to be good, non-judgmental people, but we all do it. We say, I'm colorblind. I don't see race. I don't see gender. But this is a lie. You see the color of the skin of people. You hear the accent in their voice. You see difference. Pretending you don't is denying the problem, not solving it. And we especially do it when we recruit, manage, or promote people. Blind auditions are said to increase the proportion of female players hired by orchestras to nearly 50%. Think about the first seconds you saw me on these videos. What were your assumptions about me? Is she nice? Annoying? How old is she? Where is she from? Is she single? Married? Is she educated? Is she homosexual? What are the cues that you got from the past videos? Because one tendency is to feel more comfortable with people who look like us, speak like us, studied where we studied, belong to the same social class, have the same skin color. We suppose we will understand ourselves better. We will be faster and we will not be challenged. If you can take your journal and stop this video after each of the following questions. What is the first thing that comes to your mind when you see or hear a man with a high-pitched voice and typical feminine gestures? A female pilot in your airplane? A transgender person? A woman wearing her hijab or niqab? A TV anchor with a provincial accent? An old indigenous woman in the street? A person in a wheelchair? People speaking in sign language? These unconscious implicit biases are also at play in our police and justice system. LGBTI people around the world are subjected to routine harassment and abuse by police. In France, young men perceived as North African or black are 20 times more likely to be subject to identity checks. Overwhelmingly, the people stopped by the police in the US were Black and Latino, and physical force was used half the time. Racism and other forms of discrimination are built into law enforcement and justice systems around the world, from racial profiling and discriminatory police checks to selective enforcement of drug policies and broad application of anti-terror laws. Following the introduction of emergency laws in France in 2015, police carried out thousands of discriminatory raids and house arrests, mostly targeting Muslims. Police burst into mosques, forced open doors, and sometimes handcuffed or pointed firearms at people, some of whom were targeted solely on the basis of their religious beliefs. In 2017, authorities in the Russian Republic of Chechnya unleashed a wave of attacks on people believed to be gay or lesbian. Dozens of gay men in Chechnya were abducted and tortured. Many were killed at secret detention sites. In the Dominican Republic, sex workers, and especially trans women who are sex workers, face appalling abuse at the hands of police, including rape, beatings, and humiliation. Police brutality is used to refer to various human rights violations by police. These might include beatings, racial abuse, unlawful killings, torture, or indiscriminate use of riot control agents at protests. In the US, Black people have been 28% of those killed by police in 2020, despite being only 13% of the population. Black Americans are up to 3.5 times as likely to be killed by police, and 98% of killings by police from 2013 to 2020 have not resulted in officers being charged with a crime. In 2019, police in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, killed 1,800 people, an average of 5 per day. In her documentary 13th, Ava DuVernay explains the systemic oppression of black people through the prison system in the US. 33% of the incarcerated population is black, almost triple the black citizens' share of the US population. The overwhelming preponderance of images of black men as criminals on local news and shows stoked fear in Americans. She says, so you've been educated in public deliberately over years, over decades, to believe that black men in particular are criminals. The violence in the justice and police system at institutional level is also present at personal level. It is the famous 1 in 3. 1 in 3 women around the world will be raped, beaten, coerced into sex, or otherwise abused in her lifetime. This is the famous iceberg of jokes, microaggressions, benevolent race sexism or racism progressively leading to assaults and murder. It is estimated that 35% of women worldwide have experienced either physical or sexual intimate partner violence or sexual violence by a non-partner in their lives. The likelihood of perpetrating physical violence was more than 3 times higher among men who had witnessed their fathers beating their mothers during childhood. 58% of feminicides are killed by intimate partners or family members, meaning that 137 women across the world are killed by a member of their own family every day. This is called the silent war, and it does not contemplate the mental, verbal, and emotional abuse present in so many relationships. In Pakistan, UN studies show that while 50% of women are physically abused in relationships, over 90% are mentally or verbally abused by male figures surrounding them. This abuse includes yelling, name-calling, blaming, shaming, isolation, intimidation, and or controlling behavior that ultimately chips away at a woman's feelings of self-worth and independence. It is a habitual pattern of demeaning verbal offense and excessive criticism. In many cases, women are confined to toxic relationships and are unable to escape due to the fear of being stigmatized by the society or ostracized by their community. Abuse is not limited to visible wounds on a woman's body. Like depression, the pain inflicted by psychological abuse is invisible, yet just as potent, if not more. The scars left on the mind do not fade as easily as the scars left on the body. Sexual abuse is also rampant. 1 out of 5 minors suffers sexual abuse before 17, and 60% receive no help with the trauma and the PTSD it supposes. In France, 250 women are raped every day. And bullying is becoming more and more pervasive, would it be in our physical or virtual lives. So living in a domination system means for a large majority of the population enduring constant violence or fear of violence. In general, minorities have poorer health and health outcomes than the dominant collective. As a reflection today, I'd like to ask you, have you been suffering from violence in your life, at physical or emotional level? From family members, teachers, students, partners, police? What has been the impact on your physical and mental well-being? Thank you for sharing.